to the Chair C Research Development Workshop on Writing Effective Pilot Proposals. My name is Elizabeth Fussell. I'm a professor of population studies and environment and society here at Brown, and I'm the capacity building core lead for Chair C. I was going to be joined by Jennifer Tidy, the Associate Dean for Research at the School of Public Health, who's the lead for the pilot projects for Chair C, but she was unable to make it today. This means that the scope of the meeting today is going to be a little bit different than what we had planned because I can't duplicate all of Jen's comments. I'm going to focus on what the Chair C pilot project opportunity is and how you can best position yourself to be competitive for that opportunity. And at the end of my comments, we'll have an opportunity for question and answers. Okay. So Chair C pilot projects are meant to incentivize researchers at Brown to add climate, health, and older adults to their research agenda. So Chair C is a NIH-funded project building, center building award, which is focused on extreme weather events, particularly heat, and their effects on health across the adult lifespan, with a particular focus on older adults. We are really building in this area because of the strengths that Brown already has in gerontology and public health, and as well as the strengths we have in climate change and other extreme weather events. But we haven't yet brought those two strengths into conversation with each other yet. So the award that we received is intended to galvanize research at the intersection of these areas of expertise. This is where you all come in because the capacity building core is focused on incentivizing people to join this project. So when you propose a research project for a seed award, what you should think about doing is laying the groundwork for either new research or to extend an existing project to include a focus on aging and older adults, or if you're already working on aging and older adults, to add a climate or extreme weather hazard element to the project. When you get a seed award, what the purpose of it is to increase your competitiveness for an externally funded award, whether that's from NIH, from NSF, or from some private foundation. And so what you're most likely going to do in this year of funding is demonstrate the viability, the feasibility of your research project, and perhaps produce some preliminary results that will make your project, your proposal to this external funder really stand out, and so that they have confidence that what you're proposing to do will be doable at the scale at which you're proposing to do it. Within Chair C, we have our own priorities, and those are creating interdisciplinary research teams. Your research project will have benefits and deliverables for communities. And the best way to do that is by having a community partner from the very beginning of the project. That community partner could be local to Providence or somewhere else. Later on, I'll talk a little bit more about community engagement. And next week, we'll also be having a presentation in the Chair C Accelerating Science Colloquium from Emily Gadbois, who will be talking about the community engagement partnerships that we've already developed. So the third priority is solutions oriented, which is a critical part of the reason why we're engaging community partners, because they help us to navigate toward those solutions. And then another priority would be involving at least one early stage investigator. All of these are meant to build capacity for solutions oriented and interdisciplinary research in this area. So what's the specific opportunity? We will be awarding 2 to 4 pilot projects in this coming year and then in the following year. The projects should be designed to be completed within 12 months of the start of the award, and the PI on the award must be a Brown faculty or staff member who's eligible to serve as a PI on an external grant. In order to incentivize the priorities that I just laid out in the previous slide, we have some different funding amounts that are available depending on how you design your project. So proposals in a single academic department are eligible for $50,000 for the 12-month award period. If there are 2 or more academic departments involved in the project, we increase that amount to $75,000. And then if you incorporate a community partner into your project, you can get an additional $25,000 on top of the amount that you're eligible for, depending on how many academic departments are involved. We are asking for a letter of intent, which we will be accepting from October 27th onward. If you get that letter of intent to us by October 27th or shortly thereafter, we will be best able to find appropriate reviewers for your proposal and to provide feedback to you in anticipation of the full proposal. So we will use the letter of intent as an opportunity to possibly do some matchmaking with community partners or even with other researchers at Brown if you're needing to find those sorts of partners. The letter of intent is optional but strongly encouraged. And the earlier you get it to us, the more we can achieve our own goals of either helping you or finding the reviewers who are best suited to give you a strong review. The full proposals are due on January 9th, just after the new year, and we hope to return with decisions by early February. If you are awarded a pilot award, the funds will be released to you contingent on IRB approval if that's needed. So as soon as they're awarded and you have IRB approval, we can deliver the funds. The entire funding opportunity, that everything that I'm going to be talking about today, is available on our website, and I have our website listed here just for future reference. So Chair C is really, we have already gathered some resources to help you all start doing this kind of research. And one of the opportunities that I want to highlight that's not really formally part of the SEED Award, but rather it's just one of the Chair C resources, is the Grant Project Launcher, which you can find on our website. This is you will fill out an intake form with a series of questions. And what that does is initiate a conversation with the Chair C team that will allow us the opportunity to give you some feedback and guidance and do some of that matchmaking that we might also do with a letter of opportunity for the pilot project, but that we're poised to do more generally at any time, regardless of whether or not you're applying for a seed award. So I would encourage you all to look at that. It's on the website. In addition, there are data resources that can be made available to you. Most importantly, the one that we have most readily available is the National Medicare Health Claims data, which has already been linked with temperature, humidity, and air pollution data for the US. And so that's a resource that you can explore to figure out whether that's a way in which you might explore your own area of expertise to bring in health, aging, and these sorts of environmental exposures to a data set so that you can begin building models and exploring your own topics. There's also support for spatial data analysis at Brown, and these are the Spatial Structures in Social Sciences, which is a research center housed in the Population Studies and Training Center and available to anybody on campus, as well as the Geospatial Data Center at the Brown University Library. They both have geographers in the department, in their centers, who can really help those of us who are not geographically experts, geographically inclined, or have that expertise. It will be helpful. Their support can help you to integrate the data, and it's very, the sort of spatial exposures and linking it to health outcomes is really methodologically specific. And so if there are questions about how to link the data or how to analyze the data, people in those centers can be helpful in pointing you to resources or giving you direct assistance. In addition, Chair C has connections to government and community partners, specifically the Rhode Island Department of Health, the Rhode Island Office of Healthy Aging, and then on the next slide, and also on our website, we have been cultivating community partnerships with all of these Rhode Island organizations that are focused on older adults and or health and or climate and the environment. So you can, as I said, next week's talk will be about community partnerships. And so I'd encourage you to come to that talk at 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon in the School of Public Health or online, so that you can learn more about these partnerships and how we think about doing community engaged research. So I'm sure all of you are thinking, well, what are the expectations of the proposal? And what we've described here, as well as on the web page, is a 4-page proposal with a budget and bio sketches. So it sort of roughly follows an NIH proposal model. And within the text, the first 3 pages of your proposal, you'll talk about the specific aims of your pilot project. It could be 1 or 2 aims. There's no need for it to be 3, because after all, it is just a 1-year project. And you want to, focus on coming away with some preliminary results that will strengthen a full proposal. You want to then describe the significance of the topic and how it's going to advance research in your particular area, as well as your approach, which means the methodology and the data that you'll be using in your project. So, and then finally, you need to have a statement. This is different from an NIH proposal, a statement of how the findings from your pilot award would make external funding more likely. And so that has to be very clearly stated so that we get the roadmap that you're developing that will take you from where you are right now to a really competitive proposal, and then onward to the receiving hopefully a full award from an external funder. Another important part of the proposal to us is how the proposed activity is distinct from your ongoing research. Remember, the capacity building core of Chairs C really wants to make sure that we're tilting research agendas toward our own research goals. So many people have a project that may involve health and aging, or it may involve climate exposures and something else, but possibly health, but maybe they haven't thought of it as an aging project. So what you need to do is demonstrate how this pilot award will really take your research in a direction that's more aligned with what the center is trying to build. You'll also need to include a timeline for the pilot work and for the grant submission. And you'll need to name the external funding source or sources. Those are all really important for us and both because we know what you're aiming for, and we also might be able to help you think about other possible funding opportunities. So there are restrictions on the budget. You can't ask for salary support unless you are in a faculty position in which you're expected to cover at least 30% of your salary through a research grant. And if you are in one of those positions, then you can ask for up to 10% salary support. The other sorts of things you can ask for are equipment and supplies for data collection, support for your research staff, and importantly, for community partners. One of the things that we are cultivating with our community partners is very professional relationships in which we expect them and they expect to be treated as professionals, as partners, which means getting reimbursement, a stipend in some amount. And so you can ask us about what those amounts might be as you're designing your budget. That's one of the things that we can help you with in the interval between the letter of intent and the proposal submission. You can also ask for travel costs to present project findings at conferences. If you have other things that you might want to include in your budget, feel free to talk to us about what they might be, and we can figure out if they'll be allowable. Finally, you'll need to include a biosketch of all of the investigators involved in the research. Those biosketches, if you don't already have an NIH biosketch, then it's perfectly acceptable to use an NSF biosketch, but you should have one or the other, which presumably you'll need when you do the full proposal for an external funder anyway, so you might as well get it started now. When we review your proposals, we will be using the same review criteria that the NIH would be using, although with some sort of relaxation of the rigor, because after all, these are smaller projects and we don't have the same level of expertise as an NIH study section would to evaluate your proposals. But the main thing that gets you in the door is having a project that's aligned with the Chairs C themes and goals. That's an absolute requirement before we can even begin the review process. You may be aware that NIH has recently simplified their review framework. And so what you see on the screen here is the same information that NIH has on their website about that simplified review process or framework. And so there are three factors. The first one is the importance of the research. And we talk about these as significance and innovation, and it is really encouraged for you in your proposal to use those words so that you can clearly identify for the review team what's significant about your research and what's innovative about it. That section should answer this question: how important is the proposed research? And formally, it could be scored from a high of 1 to a low of 9, but we'll maybe just we'll work with that range, but we may not actually show a formal score in our own evaluations. We'll give a more qualitative feedback. The second factor is the approach section, telling us what kind of data and methods are you using. And that is meant to evaluate the rigor and feasibility of the project. We'll use the same kind of criteria, a score, to figure out how feasible your project is, and give you some qualitative feedback on that as well. The third factor is the expertise and resources, and this is not scored. It basically is a factor that NIH uses to say, is there a sufficient expertise and resources to actually carry out the project? And it's just a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So all of these factors contribute to an overall impact score, and we'll do something like that and as we go about ranking all of the applications. One more thing, I guess I didn't say it here. The review committee will be made up of the Chair's C team. Each project will be assigned to somebody in Chair's C who has the relevant expertise. The team could include the leads as well as the other members of the research project, and also our internal steering committee, who are all basically familiar with the Chair C project, and so the reviewers will all be Brown-based. So I want to this is some of the content that Jen was going to cover, Jen Tidy. And so I'm going to review this as well. She has, but I'm just going to say, as Associate Research Dean, she has far more experience than I do in reviewing these sort of seed award proposals. And so I've borrowed her advice about what often comes up in the review process that can be a problem for actually getting funded. So the first problem is that the proposal doesn't really fit what the funder is hoping for. In the case of Chair C, the letter of intent can help with addressing this issue if you get your letter of intent in time for us to give you some feedback. But I guess the other thing I would say is that you need to make sure that you're not shoehorning a project that you want to do anyway into our research agenda, into the Chair C agenda, if you aren't really interested in being part of this sort of growing body of researchers who are working on extreme weather events, health, and aging. The proposal description can also sometimes be written in a way that it's hard for an interdisciplinary team of reviewers to understand. If you're applying for an externally funded award, you can expect that the reviewers will all be in your field. But in this case, you can't count on that. So in your 4-page proposal, you need to make sure that you're really speaking in the generalized language that would allow a somebody not trained in your field to understand what you're doing, why it's important, how it's significant for your field. And sometimes it may not be significant for your field because the innovation is really about doing something that's interdisciplinary. And if that's the case, then you can say that very plainly. Well, this is not while my project may not have innovation in terms of, let's say, natural hazard modeling, it is innovative because I'm combining it with data on health and aging. And so that's really important to be very clear and specific about what the innovation is and to say it so that people across different fields will understand. Then finally, you want to make sure that your project is right-sized for a one-year preliminary data analysis. You should not write a proposal that is necessarily going to take you all the way to the end of a project. It's going to set you up to do more research in this area. So you want to show us in the proposal what your milestones are along the way to the end of the 1 year period, and how you're going to get there and what needs to be done. We may not understand what needs to be done. So if you can demonstrate a clear understanding of the tasks involved and who's going to do them and how they're going to be accomplished, that will be very convincing to us that you've really thought this through and you know how to get from A to Z. Remember that if you need IRB approval, that will take time. And so you need to build that into your project as well. You need to, as it says here, think about the bare minimum of what you need to do to get the external grant funded. Remember that you don't want to do the whole project so that when you're writing your proposal, there's not very much to be done anymore. You need to just get the key piece of information or evidence into the proposal so that an external funder will understand what it is that you're aiming toward. So if you do receive a Chair C pilot award, here's what we expect. We expect that you will provide us with brief progress reports over the course of the year. So it's 6 months and 12 months. And one of the ways in which we expect to see these is in a presentation of your findings to the Chair C External Advisory Committee. We just had one of those meetings, and the projects from the first year were about midway through. And so we didn't see any conclusive findings yet, but we got some updates and some general ideas about where things were going and what kind of topics are being explored. After the 1 year period, we expect that you will submit a peer review publication and a grant application within 2 years of completion of the SEED award. Of course, we will keep in touch with you to make sure that those things have happened and encourage you, find out what we can do to support you in reaching those goals. But of course, that's what we're aiming for. The other thing that I would like to encourage research teams who receive SEED awards to consider is participating in the Chair C capacity building events. You can see these on our website, but we have 2 seminar series. One is a research development workshop, and this event is actually part of that series. These are occasional events that are aimed to developing research skills in the extreme weather, health, and aging research topics. We have, those are all, the ones that we've already done are listed on our website, and we will post new events as they are planned. And then we have a second regular monthly colloquia series, which is the Accelerating Science Colloquia. It's a monthly seminar series where what we hope to do is foster an interdisciplinary community of researchers at Brown who are all getting to know each other, getting to learn each other's expertise, particularly in extreme weather, health, and aging. And so through the seminar series, as well as the conversations that happen within those seminars and hopefully afterwards, we will develop this community of researchers who can participate in the opportunities that we're continuing to build. All right, I'm going to end there and ask now if there are any questions. I think you can just get on your mic and ask a question, or if you feel more comfortable, put it in the chat. Oh, Kim, yeah.
Hi, yeah, I was looking at the description of the LOI content, which seemed very light, and I was wondering, is there a page limit for that? And is it really just a few statements, or would we be better off trying to more preview what the proposal would be?
You know, what we meant it to be a light lift, and so yes, it is. It's pretty minimal. If you want to add a paragraph, if you have something more developed, you can add like a specific aims page maximum. That would help us to understand what you have in mind. But the point of the letter of intent is really as much about helping us to identify reviewers as it is about us getting to know what you're planning.
Thank you. And can I ask one very, very detailed question that might be a little bit ahead of the process? But as far as budgeting and just trying to think of the resources that would be available for certain activities, is Brown taking indirect out of okay, yeah, can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, we won't. There are no indirects in the budget. It's all direct costs.
Thank you.
And Beth, it looks like we have a question in the chat from Elise, if they're allowed to have co-PIs.
Oh yeah, co-PIs are definitely allowed, encouraged. You know, what we're hoping for is to see a research team. But I think you can kind of follow the naming of positions similar to what you would do in an NIH proposal, where some people might not reach that level of being a co-PI. They might be a consultant, or they might be, you know, a data analyst or something along those lines. You can use any of those titles. Okay. I see a comment from Alan about checking out external funding opportunities, looking at, oh yes, this is a good comment about looking at the NIH strategic framework on health and extreme weather. That is, I think many people will be responding to that new description of the ways in which weather events are being considered and prioritized in health research. So that should give you some ideas of how you might be more competitive for NIH dollars. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, I think we can end here. We're about at time. So please follow up with any questions by writing to the Chair C email or to directly to me or Jen Tidy and or me and Jen Tidy. And I look forward to hearing from you all in the future. Thank you.